Welcome, mothers and others. I am so glad that you all are here today with us. I'm going to introduce you to some wonderful candidates, and I'm so excited because now we are full on in election season. So I just got back from the 4th of July vacation, and I'm so excited to just hit the ground running and introduce you to some really fabulous candidates. So our first candidate tonight, you'll actually know her because she's currently in elected office. So Representative Josey Garcia is the representative for House District 124, and she is running again for Texas House. She is a retired Air Force veteran, and in her first inaugural term, she was voted as Freshman of the Year by the members of the House Democratic Caucus for her accomplishments during the 88th Texas legislature. She is also the first woman veteran ever elected into office in the state of Texas. So welcome, Josey. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been an honor to serve as the first woman veteran in the Texas House of Representatives. I have very humble beginnings and was impacted by some of the worst things you could possibly imagine in life. And the fact that I'm even here serving as a representative for my far west side San Antonio community is just a testament to hope. Because at this point in time, pretty much no matter what political affiliation you are, you're feeling some strange things happening in the world. It's seeing conflicts overseas and the horrible attacks on our civil rights and our personal rights here in the United States. As a woman veteran and as a mom, I felt a sense of being called back to duty to fight against these things. We're experiencing hardships that you and I were a part of the change 30, 40 years ago. And we're witnessing our children have to repeat those same fights all over again. And when are we going to say enough? I've never been involved in politics before in my life. I was just a mom who became an activist and who served my country. I was proud to serve in Iraq, and that actually gave me all the support I needed to kind of face what's going on right now in today's politics. You know, it feels like as we're out here fighting for the various causes that we fight for collectively as parents and as community members, it almost feels hopeless sometimes. And I can't for the life of me allow our community and so many parents just feel so hopeless for the future of their children. Without expanding too much into things, I am honored to be here with you all today. Thank you for inviting me to share with you all. And please let me know how I can further answer some questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One of the things that kind of like as you were just talking, that kind of occurred to me was that you actually made a decision to run for office after January the 6th. So did whatever happened in January 6th, did that change your mind and did it like trigger something in you that says, I better run for office?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if you would have asked me before January 6th if I would ever run for office, I'd say absolutely not. In the military, we're taught to be nonpartisan. We vote for our commander in chief, but whether we like him or not, we have to still complete the mission. Well, what I was seeing was a hijacking of our patriotism. And that felt like something that I hate to akin it to treason, but when our own nation's capital isn't safe from a group of civilians that are seeking to cause not only damage, you know, a lot of people want to talk about protest and damage to property, but lives were lost. And not only that, the safety and the comfort of those of us who fight for civil rights every day was put at threat as an activist in San Antonio, myself along with my chief of staff, Farrell Clark, as activists, we experienced some of that January 6th style hatred come against us as regular citizens here. We were run off the road. We were attacked. My windows were shot out. And this was something that we felt like was being turned into a race war. And as a military member, I couldn't for the life of me just sit at home in peace with my family, knowing that it felt like our community was at a real threat. So honestly, I felt like I had to pull out my combat boots again and go back to defending and protecting the Constitution and our community against all enemies. And we were facing some real enemies after January 6th. These are people that were completely radicalized, that were weaponizing our love for our country and weaponizing our love for America. And that was one thing that I couldn't, as a veteran, allow to happen without being an active part.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all your service and for stepping in and running for office because it's so important that, people do that, especially since January 6th. I mean, it's going to take all of us making the right decisions and fighting for democracy. So thank you so much. So I have a couple more questions for you. So tell me a little bit about your district there in San Antonio and what are the top three issues for your district?
Absolutely. I represent a wonderful district. Out of the 10 House districts in Bexar County, mine is one of the smallest as well as one of the most economically disadvantaged. We're rich in military history. We have Lackland Air Force Base and what used to be Kelly Field, which for our largely Hispanic community and Black population here, this was a place where you can find good paying jobs and those people have been victims of redlining. We were victims of a failed voucher system within our Edgewood ISD. We are a district that has historically been used as guinea pigs for social propaganda and all of those types of things. When folks like the governor are telling us he knows what we need for our district, but yet imposes this private school voucher that is really not meant for my constituency. It's meant for family households that make over $100,000 annually and mine does not. My district makes anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 annually. We're rich in military history, a lot of military veterans, and a lot of retired folks. Again, we had industry here that has long since gone away. And one of the issues ended up being good paying jobs. What do we do with the old Kelly fields where Orville and Wilbur Wright once flew aviation? This is the history of military aviation. And I'm proud to say that it has been transformed into now one of the largest aviation and technological hubs in the state of Texas. And that is with Techport and Boeing and, so many cybersecurity and DoD businesses that are coming in that are teaching our kids that you don't have to work for low paying jobs. We're becoming the beacon of technology and aerospace and even would you believe me if I told you middle school students are building moon rocks, taking dust from the moon, building actual brick, and they hope to construct structures on the moon. These are the great things that are coming to our district because good paying jobs was a major issue. Another major issue, of course, is public education. I'll be transparent to say that being new in politics, I had zero idea how political public education was, especially in Texas. We love our Bible, we love our families, but we don't support our children's education. to be one of the hardest pills for me to swallow as a freshman legislator, because hearing all these, trivial arguments and fights. But when it comes down to saying we need to properly fund our public schools were held hostage. There was no negotiation in good faith. And that is what we need now more than ever, because without proper school funding, we're losing our teachers. We're losing our paraprofessionals. Children are leaving school and not going back. Parents are removing their children from school. Not only do we have to look at our public schools, they're one of the top taxpayers in our district, but they're one of the top employers. And somebody like me who I was incarcerated at 8 years old, incarcerated because I didn't know where my mother was. My mother suffered from drug addiction. If it wasn't for people in school knowing I was missing, if it wasn't for people in school feeding me, if it wasn't for teachers in the school giving me a little ounce of value every day with praise, telling me when I'm wrong, when I wasn't a good student, because I wasn't always a good student. Schools are raising our children, and we don't value that enough. I get very passionate about it because it's so frustrating, because this is not a partisan issue, but it has been weaponized, just like our patriotism. My third priority, or not my priority, my district's priority, is, we have a major issue with children that are impacted by the juvenile justice system, by grandparents whose children have become addicted or have other issues, who are taking on their grandchildren in their senior years. I work with the group which you all work with as well, Texas Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. Texas DPS or CPS, DFPS lost over 300 children that were in foster care, state foster care. Over 300 children lost, unaccounted for. We have lives to save. And these are issues that are impacting all of our communities, but it's something that really hits to the heart of my community here in far west side San Antonio.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. I do want to make, for everybody who's listening to us, I want to educate you about a couple of things about Edgewood School District. First is that it had the first trial of a voucher system in the state of Texas. And we actually have a podcast, Mothers Against Greg Abbott, under our Mothers for Democracy Institute. There's a podcast on the voucher system that they tried and it failed in Edgewood ISD. So that you can find that podcast, just look up the voucher scam and look up the Edgewood experiment, and it's listed there. So please go and listen to that podcast because it's really eye-opening. And there is also another podcast. It's called Golden Pennies, and it talks about the Edgewood School District and how they paid their taxes but weren't given enough allocation of money from the TEA because they thought they could just get away with it because it was a poor school district. So Edgewood really has been at the center of so many civil rights cases in the state of Texas where they have sued the state of Texas, like the school districts, to get money and tax money to help pay for their public education. And then, of course, with the whole entire voucher thing. So if you are going to look and just really want to dive into the history of the Texas education system, I would say start with Edgewood School District because they've been hit hard. They've been taken for granted. They have, it's been terrible what has happened to their school district, but yet they persevere and they're standing by, and they have such a great community, and the community that fights for their public education system there is awesome. So they know how to raise their own. So a lot of times people who live in Edgewood, go to school to Edgewood, go get college educations, go back and teach in Edgewood. And it's so important that we have these community members that believe in their communities. So I just want to make that clear to everybody out there who's listening tonight, because it's very important that we learn the real Texas history. And to learn the real Texas history about education, you have to learn about Edgewood. So, with that, so next thing is I'm going to ask you an extra question, Josie. So I want to talk to you a little bit about you. You were there for the 88th Texas legislature. It was rough. It was rough. And the 89th is coming up, and everybody's bracing themselves for what they feel might be the worst legislative session ever. So what I have to ask you is like, can you give us a little bit of insight as to like what we're up against with the 89th legislative session and what we should all be doing as Texas Democrats to galvanize one another so we can fight the good fight?
Being new to politics, I kind of didn't know what to expect. I had this idea of what I thought was going to happen, you know, but everything that I thought it would be, it absolutely was not at all, not even a little bit. But what I will say is, I was prepared to bring something back to the community. And I think that's the one piece of advice that I would give to all of us who are activists and advocates and who are working in this space, to always keep your eye on why you're fighting. It's so easy for us to tell people about themselves. It's so easy for us to tell people why they're wrong and why we think their ideas are stupid or why we're mad at them. I made it a point, along with my team, to have an open door policy to everybody. And I didn't realize how many people did not do that on both sides. There are people who will not even address you or acknowledge you based on your political affiliation. We refuse to do that because at the end of the day, we're serving Texans. And in order for us to make change in a house that is where we're in the minority, we have to find those people who we don't have to convince that we're valuable. And those people are there. And that was how we attacked this session. We were joint authors as well as authors to hundreds of bipartisan bills. As a freshman legislator, we were able to pass numerous pieces of legislation, which is not typical, especially when there's a contentious house. People would ask me every day, Josey, how can you go up there with those people? You know, they're doing X, Y, and Z, and this is the most horrible person, and this person's going to kill all of your bills. Well, it reminded me of my training. When I was in Iraq, I did dental treatment on detainees, meaning enemy combatants that we had captured that were trying to kill us. We were under the rule of the Geneva Convention. When they're in pain, it is our oath that we treat them with care. So we would have these enemy combatants who would need emergency dental care. And in my broken Arabic, I would ask them about their pain. In my broken Arabic, I would tell them that we were working to get them out of pain. In my broken Arabic, I would make sure that they were okay. And when I was finished, they would go back to doing what they had to do. Well, that's how my thought process was. You have fundamentally different beliefs, and we can't change that. But there's enough of us that value Texans enough that we are able to advocate and testify on the House floor to the heart of the representative and not to the personality politics. And I'll tell you how successful that was or how important that was. One of my bills that I was so proud to co-author was to give foster kids a duffel bag a cloth bag to put their belongings in other than a trash bag. Well, that's a fiscal note. Anything that has money attached to it, the far right Republicans will not budge. This was going to fail. We would not give a child the dignity of having a cloth bag. They could stay in the plastic bag until I got up and I shared my testimony of what it felt like for me, a state representative, to once been a trash bag child. I was able to flip 2 votes, and that is now a state law. So it's so easy, especially as parents, to get so upset and so mad and want to curse everybody out. But our number one goal is to be heard. So please keep that in mind as we're advocating. We need a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
I love working with you all to try to strategize and see what we could do together.
We absolutely have to do that. So thank you so much for sharing that story. That really was very touching and it really meant a lot. It was just a special moment. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things we're trying to do at Mothers Against Greg Abbott, we just didn't have enough bandwidth to go after social justice issues that last session, but we're thinking about expanding it to social justice issues this upcoming session and adding that as one of our criteria in the mom's report card. So hopefully we'll be able to do that if we could get some extra help kind of tracking some of those bills because it's really important. So tell us, Josey, where can we find you and how best can we support you right now while you're running for office?
Absolutely. Well, the best way you can find me is just send us a text message. Give us a call. FaceTime 210-701-7316. And that is our number that you could reach out to anytime for any type of legislation, if you want to discuss legislation. But if you want to support me in my campaign, you can contact me. Again, text, call 210-300-5818.
Wonderful.
And also my website is joseygarcia.com, Josey Garcia.com, or you can look at me on Facebook at State Representative Josey Garcia, House District 124.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I have to say, I'm a very lucky person because I finally get to meet Josey in person this coming week. She is joining Mothers Against Greg Abbott and a bunch of the folks on the Tour to Save Democracy, a bunch of the Gen Z folks. And I'm super excited that we're going to be going down to San Antonio to go focus on getting out the vote. And I can't wait to meet you, Josey. I'm going to give you a big hug.
Likewise, yes, me too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.